now listening to the Arsenal Therapy Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the 15-minute show, part of the Arsenal Therapy Podcast. Today I'm here with Jimmy Kent to discuss Gabriel's new deal. This is one of the biggest signings for Arsenal this summer. This is a guy who was offered triple his wages to go to Saudi. Arsenal have held off deals for him in the past with Saudi, and it seems that we have really secured a massive contract for him to keep him at the club until he is 32 years old. Jimmy, how are you and what are your thoughts on this deal?
I'm good. I'm very good. And look, he's a big player. He is Mikel Arteta's first soldier. Something about him is kind of, I don't know, it feels like Arsenal. I couldn't see him elsewhere. We have made him into, probably a bit biased, one of the best, if not the best, left-side centre-back in European football, if not the world. And look, if he's going to stay here till he's, with all due respect, past his prime, at least 32 of his contract, who knows, might extend it further. We've got a hell of a deal. It's for him to turn down wages that he was offered from Saudi to stay at Arsenal, to stay with the project, stay with Mikel. Unbelievable. It's as good as that big number 9 we're going to get. It just feels like if he had gone, all of a sudden we've gone back to 3 or 4 phases, and to replace him, you're looking at, well, there's no one in the world I think I want to put with him instead, but there's a lot of money to replace him, both salary-wise and transfer-wise. But look, we haven't got to. He's staying. He's ours.
Absolutely. I did go through a few mental gymnastics earlier in the window before it opened end of the season about Gabriel, when there were reports that he could be one of the big sales that Saudi could come in and offer well over 100 million for him. And I was thinking 100 million, great, but actually how much does it cost to replace him in that? And I thought you can get Howson for 50 million. It seemed we did actually want him on top of Saliba and Gabriel, but he's quite a bit less advanced than the two of them. He was 19, 20 years old. He's someone that is very much in the development stage of his game. Brilliant player, absolutely stunning footballer, and he's very, very well rounded for his age, but he is not Gabriel. And I think this is something, when we talk about win now, it's not just about who we add, it's about who we retain. And as I said, this deal keeps Gabriel at the club until he's 32. That means he is going to be there until his absolute peak is probably over, but he is a defender, and we've seen Gabriel's his mental side improve continuously over the years. And also, I think one of the prime examples with Gabriel is when we talk about players being raw. Gabriel came in and he was raw, but he was a very, very good player. And if you look at the constant growth of his game, some people predicted that he would really start to round off at 27 and really hit his stride then. He actually hit it about 25. And the last 2 seasons, he's been an unstoppable force at the back for Arsenal. So talk to me about what you think this means for Saliba as well, because we know the two of them are very close, but we also know that Gabriel has become the defensive leader. Do you think that Saliba seeing Gabriel sign that deal and show the belief that he can win trophies at Arsenal will encourage Saliba to sign as well?
Massively. Not just Saliba, Saka as well. And when it comes to renewing anyone else, I think, right, we've seen a player like Gabriel, like I said, has been here for a long time now, been here 5 years. He's seen us be from Europa League players to missing out in Europe completely. He's done it all with the club. He's the one that deserves to take us to that next step. And if he's the one saying, I'm saying it, I believe in this project, I've seen it from the start. What more do you need from someone from the outside or someone who's just come into it and know, okay, yeah, this is a good place to be? And for years, he had those bozo moments. We spoke about it a lot, and they're gone. They're fully gone now, which is remarkable. And him and Saliba work really well because, look, Saliba is a brilliant defender, world-class defender in his own right. And he is going to be a leader and a quality leader one day, but he's not there yet. And that's not an issue with him. If he's happy to be that one below Gabriel, fantastic. He works really well at it. We saw it when Kivior came in. Saliba did step up a little bit and was a bit more, on that leader side of it. So to have Gabriel be that leader again and continue being that leader for Saliba, I think will help not just his growth on the pitch as a defender, but off it as well. It's little things like the whole Jorginho thing of being at Arsenal. He wasn't playing all last year because one of the most important people in that squad for just being a leadership around the club. And if we can keep Gabriel doing that and bring Saliba into being that sort of level as well, all of a sudden you've got them two, you've got Bryce, Saka's got leadership qualities, obviously Odegaard's for captain. All of a sudden you get these players who are around the pitch at all times showing the leaders, showing their quality in that sort of respect. So just keeping him for that side of things, regardless of the football, is just remarkably good for the entire club, for Arsenal and for Arteta. So I, I can sit here all day and just wax lyrical about how much we need him, how much he needs us in a way as well, and how much we complement each other. And I don't know. I have seen a lot of defenders come and go at Arsenal. He is one of the best I've ever seen. Probably as well the best Emirates era defender. I know he ended,
Saliba.
but I know he ended really poorly. But I did love Laurent Koscielny, and look, regardless how he ended, he was phenomenal at some stage of his career. Him and Mertesacker together were very, very underrated at the Emirates. But what we've got now, level above, a level
Absolutely. But yeah, you mentioned Gabriel had been there from the start. He was essentially Mikel's first signing. If you look at the signings Mikel brought in around him and look at who Mikel has signed since, he was given Cedric Suarez, Pablo Mari, and Willian on a free transfer. Look at the players Mikel has pushed to bring into Arsenal. They were not the players that he wanted. In that January, he went out and he tried to buy John Stones, and he looked at Jorginho as well. He looked at other high-quality players, Bruno Guimaraes. Instead, he was given Mari and Cedric Suarez. So when Gabriel came in for around 23 million, he was his first signing. It's also worth noting that we finished 8th. We did win the FA Cup, but it wasn't a good season at all. The club was still a mess. Arteta was clearly getting his footprint in there, trying to create something that was going to be stable and sustainable going forward. And Gabriel bought into that. Napoli and Man United, who were not the joke they are now at this stage. They were a much, much better team than we are. But they both went in strong for Gabriel, and he chose to come to Arsenal. He bought into the project very early on. And it goes back to 2020. Aubameyang said that Arteta couldn't manage personalities. And I think there possibly was an element of truth in it at the time. Whether it was he couldn't manage big personalities that had huge egos and weren't performing, or he couldn't manage big personalities, I don't know. But there may have been something in that. However, fast forward 5 years, Gabriel is one of the most passionate, fiery leaders on a football pitch. Do you think that it shows now when you've got him, Saka, Saliba, Declan Rice? These are top tier international footballers. Do you think that Gabriel is a prime example of the change in Mikel and how he can manage these personalities, and also how much people are still buying into what Mikel wants to do?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of both. And I feel that line for Aubameyang, it's probably is true in some respects, but I feel as well it's certain personalities he doesn't want to manage. And that's no shade on Aubameyang. He was fantastic here for 90% of his Arsenal career. But he was flamboyant. He was egotistical. He was that bit of a swagger. Well, we loved him. It's why we signed him. That's not what Arsenal are. It's not what Arsenal are about. It worked at the time. But if you look at Rice as a huge online personality, Saka's got personality. Gabriel says fiery, but not cocky. They haven't got an ego. They haven't got a kind of that side of it. Which, look, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Some players do really well with that side of an ego and personality. Arsenal don't want that. Arteta doesn't want that, and that's fine. We've got players who are fiery and up for it, but can keep it restrained, keep it within within the pitch, and not venture out further and be that egotistical person outside it. So I think that's kind of what Arsenal and Arteta wanted to bring in from the start. Aubameyang just didn't fit into that, unfortunately. Same as Guendouzi. That sort of personality didn't fit within the club, and Arteta thought, right, let's start from scratch. Let's use the morals of Arsenal. You don't belong here, and thank you, but goodbye. So I do somewhat agree with Aubameyang and his statement, but at the same time, like I said, it's certain personalities we want to just keep at the club. And Gabriel, South American, fiery. He was sometimes a bit too fiery over a few years, but like I said, that's calmed down now. The Bozo moments have calmed down. He may have wanted to every now and then, which I think every footballer in the world is allowed to have a moment where you think, "Oh, that wasn't you." Look at Saliba last few games; he wasn't exactly Saliba of old. So those sort of moments, it's the personality of South American fiery boy fits in next to the cool, calm, ice cold Saliba.
Absolutely. I think as well, when you look at, we talk about the Bozo moments, I think in the season just gone, I don't know whether we're still calling it this season or last season, we saw very, very few errors from Gabriel. He bailed out his defensive partners numerous times. He led from the front as well. The goals are something that we know were such a big threat. But even when Gabriel got injured, we saw that we started conceding from set pieces. I would also mention that after Havertz got injured, we seemed a lot more susceptible from not winning that first ball because Havertz is such a big defensive presence. And not having Gabriel, he is that leader at the back. Saliba is stepping up into that role, and I think probably playing without Gabriel in the run helped him long term, but it ultimately weakened Arsenal. And I think Kivior was fantastic. He was really, really good whenever he came in, but there's things that Gabriel does that, being faultless, doesn't give you that extra 5-10% that Gabriel gives you. One of the things that Gabriel brings that's just so difficult to replace is how high he can squeeze a team up the pitch. He's so aggressive, so front-footed. The ball comes down, Gabriel's on his toes already, stepping forward, he smashes a man in the back, he's happy to take a free kick, but he wins the ball far more often than not. And what we're seeing as well is that kind of enthusiasm to win. It used to lead to him conceding a lot of free kicks. Now he's willing to concede a free kick, but we also see Gabriel charge forward, stop, let the ball run past him, and know that the defender or the attacker isn't going to be able to get round him, and he comfortably knocks it off to Saliba. Similarly, we'll see him just leave the ball and let it run to Saliba, and he's able to use his body to feign players and throw them off. And again, these are all big improvements. The other thing that I would say is a massive improvement of Gabriel, and probably the thing that tied everything together, is him locking in his first touch. So Gabriel's first touch used to define what his next action was like. If you look at him over the last 2 years, his first touch, he's trapping it, he's killing it very, very quickly. He also gets that ball moving. The way he moves the ball down the left's overrated. He's also got a big switch on him. Kivior similarly is a very, very good passer. I would say he's one of the best passers in our squad. But what Gabriel does out of possession is just huge. And where would you say that, I guess, if you were looking at Gabriel, if in the squad, in terms of managing his minutes, how do you replace that energy and that really forceful squeezing of teams? Is it bringing in Calafiori? Because this is something that we're going to have to look at. Saliba and Gabriel have just been mainstays in the team for years, and we've seen Gabriel break down, and then we've seen Saliba end of the season get an injury. There comes a point where we need to start rotating these two better. Who would you look at bringing in to replace Gabriel in games and also give us something slightly different?
It's a hard one for sure. I think with Saliba, when he's missing, I'm happy with Ben White stepping in there. We saw him do against Liverpool at home, and that was perfect for me. Gabriel's a different one. It's to get anything remotely close to him, you are spending a lot of money. And that's the issue. I feel I'd rather see that spent on a striker and a winger instead. And Calafiori, I love Calafiori, but he is very raw, and he does have a bozo moment in him because he's very, with different player to Gabriel, he's very attacking, he's very flary. But I like that. I like that a lot. When he came on against Newcastle, I think it was Newcastle a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it was
played centre half, but was pretty much left wing at one point, and I liked that because it made Newcastle think, okay, where on earth is this centre back going to turn up? But if Isaac was playing that game, for example, and my left centre back was playing left wing, I wouldn't be comfortable. So it's having that sort of mature enough player to be a bit different, but also know, okay, I just cannot leave this guy on his own. Maybe it's me being cheap, wanting to see that money spent on a striker instead, but I think Kivior is perfect for what we've got right now. I think he is learning from him every day in training. You saw back in last year when Gabriel went missing for the hamstring, Kivior stepped up, and look, if that was his last sort of moments in an Arsenal shirt, you've added another £5-10 million to your value because you played really, really well. But at the same time, if I'm now Kivior, I'm thinking, right, I could leave, and I probably could get games elsewhere. I've seen what it's like now to start for Arsenal. I want to do that more. And like you said, Gabriel Saliba played so many games over the last 2-3 years, but maybe when the Champions League draw comes out, we can see, okay, we got this team at home, that team away. Oh, look at that. We've somehow got Burnley at home the week after. You can see a bit of a run appearing for players like Kivior, like Calafiori as well, if needs be. I'll chop and change it. But I feel with those two, and look, I assume we'll sign another defender in the window. Obviously, with Tierney going, probably Zinchenko going, Tomiyasu apparently playing the best game of hide and seek in his career. I think let's get another defender who will be universally used across centre back and one of the fullback roles. So I'd love to keep Kivior and let him do the job, and then reevaluate come January. Look, clearly you had a great spell in the last year, but you can't keep it going when you're in and out of the team, which is understandable. Not many people can keep it going in and out of the team, but he's not going to start with Gabriel, and that is, I think he understands that. But to have him learn from him still and keep him there, I think it makes more sense than going out and spending, what, £40 million these days, 100k a week on a player who's going to sit on the bench and then come in to, 10 starts a season if you're lucky. So for me, I'm sticking with what we got, and it's a risk, but I'm sticking with what we got.
Yeah, I think Kivior, for his own good, may need to move on. But I think if he stays, he's someone that needs to have insurances, and Mikel needs to trust him more. So he can play as a right centre back, he can play as a left centre back, and he can play left back. So I think he's someone that needs to be used. We've seen what he's like when he's used. Well, once those muscles get lubricated and his knees get moving, Kivior can move. He comes in and he's a bit stiff, but he hasn't played for months at times. We saw him in the 23-24 season playing left back, fantastic. Long run of games where he was consistently delivering. Then he came in this year again. Whenever he had a run of games, he looked really good. So this is the key, is making sure he's actually playing. And if that's the case, I don't think that there's a reason to sell him. If he wants to go because he's not believing that he's going to get the chances, yeah, absolutely. Let's sell him and bring someone else in for the same price. Maybe someone slightly younger. Allow Kivior to go and just keep that kind of 21 to 25-year-old coming through as a backup that may push for a real starting place against Saliba and Gabriel. If not, I'd be more than happy keeping Kivior. But one thing, talking about Gabriel's personality, Gabriel had a hamstring injury earlier in the season, around November. It was a grade 1, very, very small hamstring injury, and he missed the United game. And Kivior stepped in that game, had a good game. But Mikel talked about that later in the season, and he said that after the game, it was a grade 1. They knew it wasn't serious. It was more hamstring tightness than anything. Gabriel came to him after one game and said, I'm fine, I'm ready to play. And possibly even before the United game, he wanted to play. The medics said to Arteta, it's not safe to play him. He might get through this, but there's a strong chance that he will come back with a grade 2 or grade 3 hamstring injury because he's not ready to play. So Mikel took the word of the medics over Gabriel. He said he wasn't happy. They had a big row about it. And Gabriel ultimately backed down and agreed not to play. He then kept him out of the next 2 games because he didn't want to risk him, and again listened to the medics despite the player really forcefully trying to say, I'm ready to play. This is something Mikel gets a lot of criticism for, but I think it comes back to that personality that you have to manage and the will of the player. If your player's telling you they're fine, there's times that you have to listen to them, but there's also times you have to trust your medics. But the reason that I'm bringing this up is because we talk about rotating Gabriel. How do you actually do that? Because this is a guy who is very, very robust and wants to play every minute.
Yeah, well, I think it's similar to a Declan Rice sort of character. He wants to play 90 minutes week in, week out, and he says he'll be fine doing it. He won't, he'll fall apart. But it's just knowing, quite simply, the best way of doing it. And Arteta sees his guys week in, week out, day in, day out. He knows them, he knows the families. He will know the best way to say, look, Gabby, I ain't playing you against Burnley tomorrow or whoever it may be for the sake of this, for the sake of that. And with Gabby getting a bit older, he'll be more wiser to this sort of stuff. And of course, he can still play, 30 games a season in the league and still be fine with it. But I think sometimes those little games are worth it for him. And I think he'll know it. He's getting old, like I said. We saw, like you said, he missed the United game a few games after. We've seen it happen with Arteta before. He played Party too early, rushed him back. All of a sudden, he's out for months. Declan Rice, was injured for PSG's second leg game, but the club and Arsenal knew how big it was. He was injected up and strapped up, then missed the next game. So it's games like that you kind of think, okay, let's get him back if we can. Like, we all know Havertz came back when he did. If he made the final, he'd have been fully fit enough to be fully involved in that final. So it's managing those sort of moments as well as the player. So like you said, the United game in December, I think it was early December, it's not season defining. It's not a massive game. And with all due respect to Man United, they're not what they are. United home and United away really should be 3 points for Arsenal nowadays. We were fine having Kivior there. It wasn't, a City at home or Liverpool at home. We didn't have Saliba. So I think it's just managing the games as well as the players, which, look, I wouldn't be a manager. That's horrible to do. Like you said, it's a fiery 6'4" bloke probably shouting at you. Arteta's not the biggest guy in the world. You've got to then go, all right, mate, you calm down. I'm the manager. You will play again. Don't worry. I'm listening to my medics. I'm listening to the people who are telling me the best thing to do for you and for your career. And I think Arsenal and Arteta, like I said, haven't been doing that well enough in his career at Arsenal. We've lost a lot of players with injury. I'm not saying it's all Arteta's fault whatsoever, but our medics have definitely not been up to scratch in recent years. Now they are. Now listen to them. Brilliant. Now Gabriel, if he played against United, we might have lost him for more games throughout December. And look, December wasn't best anyway for us. We had a really bad December, but it could have been a lot worse if we didn't have Gabriel. It could have been carried on in January, and all of a sudden, it's now 3-4 months without him because his hamstrings got worse. And look, what happened. That's unfortunate. I don't think they're at all aligned with one another. I think the one hamstring injury is a separate one. And then the one we got in
completely different.
It's completely separate injury. And people, of course, on social media will try to bring up the United one. We had the grade 1 and we spoke about it, blah, blah, blah. And people saying, Arteta played him in this, Arteta played him in that. And because obviously the Fulham game came after 2 week break for Gabriel. Yeah, so he played one game for Brazil, got booked, missed the next game. So we had a good bit of time off between Brazil game and Arsenal game. Yet somehow people still blame the injury in December. But that's social media for you. But I feel Arteta's done it well. And you can see, obviously, clearly hasn't annoyed Gabriel that much. He signed a new contract over it all. So what I did like about it all most is apparently throughout his injury and throughout Saka's injury, Andrea Berta, excuse me, has taken time with both players during the injury camp to get to know them better, to kind of know them on a personal level, and then enter into contract negotiations, which he could come in and say, look, I'm man in charge, let's talk about it. He didn't. He's looked at Arsenal as a family. I'm going to know you first, then we'll get business going. Then we'll talk about your contract, then we'll talk about everything else. And maybe Gabriel liked that, because to turn down, again, the money from Saudi, it's astronomical. And we've got to understand football is a job. They will love the club, they love playing the game, but it's a job. It's a job you do for 15 years if you're lucky, 10 for most. You do have to start looking about and think about your future afterwards. And I don't know what he's on. In a new contract at Arsenal, I'm going to assume it's around the 200k mark, give or take a bit below, a bit above. But if he's happy enough to commit to that with the personality he's got, and with Arteta not playing him when he's injured, brilliant. We've got a fiery bloke who's the prime of his career and going to see out his career, in theory, at Arsenal.
Yeah, well, Gabriel's someone that's very much bought into the project. He's someone, if you look at the videos of his whole family, they run around in Arsenal shirts every game. He has them at his box whenever he's been out injured. Every one of them kitted out in full Arsenal gear. So it's very much, he is bought in. He wants to be here. So for me, as I said at the start, this is someone who is very much bought into this. And he is someone that I believe is one of the most important signings of the summer, because, as I said, you have to retain well to add, because if you don't retain, you get into the business of replacing. We've been there before where we'd sell our best assets and constantly look to replace. It did mean we were always refreshing, but it also meant that we were never actually strengthening, because we just lost the key players in our team. And Gabriel is very much that. He's one of the leaders. He's one of our captains groups. And he's someone that wears the armband on occasions at Arsenal. So this, for me, is one of the biggest and best deals that we will do. And also, I fully believe, and he will believe, he is going to win trophies at Arsenal. He is going to go down as a club legend. And on your earlier point, he is the best centre-back in his position in the world, bar none. So we will leave it there. Thank you to everyone that has watched the show up until this point. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and please join us again for the next show, and check out some of our previous scouting episodes, which you can find on the 15-minute show playlist. Thank you. Good day.